Hello and welcome to the Intel Brief. Today is Thursday, 27 February. I am your host Daniel, and today we're going to talk about the Cuban Coast Guard has killed 4 in a US-flagged speedboat. A former US Air Force pilot has been arrested for providing defense services to the Chinese military, and a suspect has been arrested in Germany for the 2025 killing of a Ukrainian aide, or former Ukrainian aide. So firstly, the Cuban Coast Guard has shot dead 4 people and injured 6 more in a speedboat registered to the United States, the Cuban Interior Ministry said on Wednesday. The speedboat was detected 1 nautical mile from an area of Cuba, north on its northeastern coast, the ministry said. The Interior Ministry said that the boat fired at the Coast Guard, injuring the commander of the vessel. As a result, a clash ensued and 4 of the aggressors were killed and 6 others wounded. The ministry said that it remained committed to protecting the territorial waters of Cuba. Later, the Cuban government said that 10 individuals aboard the Florida-registered speedboat were armed Cubans living in the United States who were trying to infiltrate the island to unleash terrorism. So what? I think there's a slight possibility here that it could increase tensions between the US and Cuba, but I do think this is unlikely due to them being Cuban nationals and clearly being the aggressors in the situation. I think it's more likely that they're part of smuggling routes trying to bring Cubans from Cuba back into the United States, and unlikely to be covert agents who were planning to infiltrate to conduct acts of terrorism as claimed by the Cuban government. And I think it's likely only a significant news story due to current tensions. It's not an uncommon situation. The shooting part is, but it's not an uncommon situation that Cuban nationals living in Florida help smuggle Cubans over to the United States. So yeah, tensions could get high, but we'll see. Next, the US Justice Department has announced the arrest on Wednesday of a former US Air Force pilot who allegedly trained Chinese military personnel without authorization. Gerald Brown, who was 65, was arrested in Indiana after having recently returned to the United States from China, where he had been since December 2023. He is accused of having conspired with foreign nationals to provide combat aircraft training to pilots in the Chinese Air Force without a license required by the US State Department. FBI Director Kash Patel said on X that it was a major news story and that the FBI and our partners have arrested a former US Air Force pilot. So what? I think it's going to be an interesting test case if it actually does get to court, and it's going to test the lifelong obligation of what the military teaches you, what secrets, how long secrets are required to be kept for, and things like that. Essentially, what does the military teach you that you essentially owe them for life? To me, this is interesting because it could lean into a similar situation when it comes to intelligence professionals working in the corporate sector. It's not uncommon for former traditional intelligence professionals from either the government or the military to go work in the corporate sector, as I do, and then go and work for a foreign government to achieve these goals. So some of these companies, they take jobs from foreign governments to conduct investigations on behalf of them. So it could be an interesting test case that could lead to maybe some interesting situations there, because if you're a professional who's been trained by the military or the government to conduct intelligence operations, and then you are using these skills to benefit a foreign government, it's a similar situation to this. So, it's just something I thought that could be interesting in the future, both for me personally and for people who are in a similar profession to me. And lastly, a person suspected of killing a former Ukrainian pro-Russian politician, I thought it was the aide, outside a wealthy suburb in Madrid in 2025, has been arrested in Germany by Spanish and German police, the Spanish National Police said on Wednesday. The suspect was arrested in Heisberg, a German town close to the Dutch border, without providing additional details. They said this without providing additional details. The politician was a senior aide to the former Ukrainian president with close ties to Moscow. He was ousted in 2014 during the Maidan Revolution, where Ukrainians protested the president's decision to pull Ukraine away from the European Union and closer to Russia. He fled Ukraine to Russia in 2014. So what? I think it's quite possible that this individual could be linked to Ukrainian intelligence. It wouldn't be an unsurprising situation to find that out, right? Ukraine probably wanted this guy removed from the the world, the battle space, the operating environment, let's say. And if so, it's likely to cause tensions. Um, that's only if it becomes a large news story. I also think it's quite possible that if it is becomes clear that he worked for Ukrainian intelligence, then it could get swept under the rug pretty quickly, and we may never hear about this again. If that does become the case, it is possible, and I think it's probably likely, that this news story would be picked up by foreign media to try and, you know, point the situation out and like overhype the situation. Pretty common information warfare technique, which wouldn't be unheard of. It's possible they'll probably try and do it anyway without there being provable links. But could get a bit interesting in the future. But we'll have to wait and see, or not see, depending on how this situation goes. Anyway, that's been your Intel Brief. I've been your host, Daniel, and I'll see you again tomorrow. See you.